The Universe Survival arc was the final arc of Dragon Ball Super, where we witnessed the Tournament of Power unfold. And with this tournament came huge stakes and exciting fights. Now over on Geekdom 101, we listed off 10 things we liked about the Universe Survival arc. However, in this video, we're going to take a look at the other perspective and list off some things we didn't like. So what are 10 things we didn't like in Dragon Ball Super's Universe Survival arc? Well, in this video, we're going to list those off. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Alright, so in this video, we're going to be listing off 10 things we didn't like about the Dragon Ball Super Universe Survival arc, and over on Geekdom 101's channel, you can find 10 things that we did like about the Universe Survival arc. His name is Geekdom 101. How are you doing?
I'm good. Talking about the 10 things we did not like about the arc, and I just want to say before we go any further, this does not mean that we hate Dragon Ball. Please don't think black or white. It's just things that were kind of annoying in this arc that could have been better. That's all this is.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end, criticism is usually so that things can improve or so that we can point out what could have been better. So
if we didn't care, we wouldn't do it.
No, absolutely. So to start us out, what is the first thing that you want to talk about on your list?
The first thing I want to talk about on my list of my 5, and you have your 5, is happened at the beginning of the arc. Well, not the beginning, but in the middle, close to the middle, and that is Majin Buu not competing. Now, I know that Majin Buu falling asleep became a running joke in Dragon Ball Super. I get all that. I get it. To me, I thought it was really lame that they did the same joke for a third time where he overslept and they couldn't pick him. And even though it did lead to Frieza being put in here, which was a good choice, and I also know that taking Buu out removed a lot of the hacks that they could have done for the tournament, I just thought that the reasoning behind it was kind of dumb. And they even went so far as to kind of tease us by showing skinny fat Buu and having Goku fight him. It was almost like they were getting us ready for a big bait and switch, and that's what it was. I mean, that's pretty much what it was, and it did kind of irritate me that the reason was what they gave us, and plus we already got screwed out of Buu in the first tournament, so again, twice in one series, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just that, you know, at least we did get to see that little fight between him and Basil in the Zen exhibition match, which we talked about on our other lists that you can check out on Geekdom 101's channel. But the thing is that I feel like it would have been so much better to see him actually in the tournament. But for me, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is something that I kind of just want to get out of the way now, and I feel like is something that's been kind of talked about to death in this arc and Dragon Ball Super in a whole, and that is power scaling. And for me, I just felt the power scaling in this arc and the consistency of characters' power was just way too inconsistent. It was all over the place. Sometimes a certain character would seemingly be this level of power compared to like Goku or Vegeta, and then it would seem like they're on a completely different level, or someone who's fighting
or
like
weaker like Jiren.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just so confusing in this arc, and I just feel like they just should have executed it far better than they did.
You know, you've had a few disagreements with some of the other power scalers in our community, and I feel like if the series was more consistent, that wouldn't happen. You know, that's the way I see it.
I mean, if it was easier for us to understand, I feel like we would all get along much easier when it comes to these discussions.
Agreed. My next one on my list, pointless bad filler, okay? There wasn't too much of it here, but it existed. There were a few episodes during the tournament that I thought were just boring. The sniper episode, the Ani Raza first one was boring. I actually was falling asleep watching it, I'm not even gonna lie. And then to me, like, the pinnacle of bad episodes is probably the TN one with Urine, which was funny, but has no replay value for me. And then, of course, the Android 17 against the Space Poachers was a complete waste of time. It was like the worst of GT. Did not like that at all. And there were other parts of the arc where I felt they could have combined and truncated some things together and expounded upon other things, and they just kind of wasted people's time. Especially the Gohan episodes that built him up really well, but then wound up being a big waste of time at the end of the day because Gohan didn't do as much as we thought he was going to do. So I think that a lot of this filler, when we go back and rewatch it, can be legitimately skipped. In fact, the whole pre-tournament stuff, except for the Frieza and 17 recruitments, can also be skipped in my opinion. Most of it was pointless.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that was kind of frustrating about the early section of this arc, where, certain things were just dragged out for no reason. And like you said, I couldn't stand those poacher episodes. I was like, just put in one episode, let's move on. I don't need this at all.
Right.
But getting into my next thing that I want to discuss is going to be something else that, ties into what you were just discussing. And I feel like that is certain characters being wasted in this arc. And that relates not only to characters that are newer, but especially to characters that already were there, such as Hit, who I felt didn't really get kind of like his fair share in this arc. He didn't really get to have as many cool fights as he really could have or should have. Like, for example, a rematch between Hit and Vegeta, or even a rematch between Hit and Goku. We got in that filler where Hit actually killed Goku and he brought himself back to life somehow. But that's about it, and I thought that was a big disappointment.
Yeah, and there were a lot more characters too, like Tien was wasted for no reason, I felt. Kaba did a little bit, but probably not as much as he should have. Yeah, I agree. And actually, my next one kind of goes with that one, and mine is underdeveloped fighters. And what I mean by that is new characters. They focused on Caulifla, Kale, Topo. A few characters did get some focus, but there's a whole bunch of other characters in this tournament that we did not give a damn about, and thus their eliminations meant nothing. They tried to get us to care about Rib Brianna. She wound up being one of the more hated characters in the fandom. They tried to get us to care about some of the Universe 10 guys, but we didn't. The Universe 6 and the Mechians did nothing, and I just feel like if they had spent a bit more time developing the other Universe characters versus the ones that we already knew, or the Universe 7 ones, they focused on that a little too much. I think we would have been more attached to those characters and felt it more when they got eliminated. Now, I'm not saying you have to do an extra 10 episodes per universe or anything like that, but I still felt like going into it, we only knew a handful of characters, or only cared about a handful of them. The rest of them were just jabronis, and I get having jabronis, but their eliminations aren't going to even matter, and they're going to try and make us feel something, but you don't feel anything because you don't even know them.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the things that was definitely an issue here, but I mean, that's definitely something that we kind of saw, I guess, going into this arc as well. Was Toriyama really going to pull a Togashi and develop every single member of these teams that like our main characters go up against? I mean, maybe if he had like a traditional tournament format, but even then.
Well, he didn't have to develop all of them, just at least some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting into my next thing that I want to discuss is something I thought was just kind of weird throughout this tournament. And, I feel like a lot of people agree with me on this, and that is the inconsistent stamina and really how the concept of stamina is used throughout this tournament and throughout this arc in total. For example, Super Saiyan Blue, I think, is a great example where we hear that when a character is in Super Saiyan Blue for an extended period of time, it drains a lot of stamina. However, as we see during the tournament, Goku and Vegeta are jumping in and out of the form constantly. We see that, it seems like they should have zero stamina left after fight, yet they're actually getting stronger and they could still put out more energy. It's just really confusing. It's almost like every character turned into Android 17 and 18 when it comes to their stamina.
Yeah, and seconds later they got stronger. And don't forget how there were a few episodes where Beerus and them kept claiming that Vegeta was totally done and he really wasn't. Yeah, that was weird. My next one that I didn't like was the over focus on Universe 7. I didn't like that. Even though it's supposed to be a Royal Rumble, every sort of mini arc or mini story or episode felt like it was Universe 7 versus somebody. We didn't see that many truly battle royal-esque type of stuff. Like we didn't see like Universe 2 versus 6. Very little of it interspersed throughout the arc, but it was mostly just different people coming up on Universe 7 and either winning or losing. And that's pretty much what it was, and it got lame. Like it didn't feel like a Rumble. It did not feel like it was every man for himself. It felt like it was Universe 7 versus the world, and I didn't want that. Even though they sort of teased it in the pre-tournament stuff, I just really wanted them to make it an actual Rumble for survival, and I thought that it was too much about Universe 7, dude. Let's get some new characters over even more, which kind of goes with my last one anyways.
Yeah, Yeah, I completely agree. It's just so many universes. It seemed like their strategy was like, let's go fight Goku at Universe 7. And then universe after universe kept doing that. It's just like, why don't you guys fight some of the other universes? You know, like just have this crazy multi-universe like battle royal, like you were saying, like a Royal Rumble, like a WWE kind of battle royal or a classic wrestling one. And it just seems like that wasn't really what they were going for here.
Yeah, it was just back to Universe 7 every week.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next thing I want to talk about is something I feel like almost is kind of like that, in which it's about focusing on certain characters a little bit too much. And for me, that would have to be Kale and Khalifa, because I really was not a big fan of their characters during this arc, to say the very least. I didn't really like how Khalifa achieved certain things rather quickly, even with, you know, perhaps some kind of built-in information about Universe 6. I felt like it was a little bit too quick, a little bit too rushed with her achieving all these things. You know, I just didn't really enjoy her character very much. But the thing is, like, Kale for me was maybe even worse in other ways, because Kale was basically just Broly. You know, if I remember correctly, there was notes that came out that literally had like production notes from Toei that said Kale turns into Broly in this episode for, what was it?
Yeah, it was that they created Kale to capitalize on Broly's popularity without putting him in the series. That's what you're referring to, which we all kind of knew, but it confirmed it. And Kale was not created by Toriyama. That was a Toei corporate idea.
Yeah, so I just didn't really like what they were going for with those characters. I didn't like how much they focused on them. You know, I did think their fusion was definitely better than them, like, individually, but overall, I just really didn't like how much they focused on these characters.
My, I guess, last one, which is actually one that infuriates me, even to this day, is the treatment of Piccolo. And I thought about talking about Gohan, but the treatment of Piccolo did nothing. Absolutely nothing in this arc. He helped Gohan out a little bit, but the focus was on Gohan, which led to nothing. Piccolo, during the tournament, he didn't team up with 17. He teamed up with Gohan and didn't do much. He wound up jobbing out to a freaking Universe 4 bug in the most anticlimactic elimination ever. I don't know what's worse, the chopsticks or a bug. It was just embarrassing, and I hated that. To this day, that is the worst elimination in this whole thing. Like, Tien's was bad, but Piccolo was just, what's the point of even having him stay around at this point? Just have him go off and go back to Namek or something, dude. Like, he's doing nothing in this freaking series, especially in this arc. And I feel bad for the Piccolo fans.
Yeah, I was just really disappointed in how they used Piccolo here. And it seemed like they were building up Piccolo because of his arms constantly getting blown off. Like, he was going to be low on stamina and be defeated by somebody maybe weaker, but not a bug. Like, that was just ridiculous. And I don't know, it might be worse than those chopsticks. But for me, the final thing I want to talk about on my list is going to be something that I feel like for me dragged the arc down a little bit, and that is the pacing and the fact that I feel like this arc was really just overly long. You know, I feel like if this arc, and especially the tournament portion of it, had been like cut down like 10, even like 20 episodes, given the story that they were covering here and the content, I feel like it would have been far more just focused. It would have had far better and more concise and consistent action. And I think it just would have been a far less kind of grueling experience, because sometimes during this arc, I feel like watching week to week, you know, episode per episode was just an endurance test, more or less.
Yeah, I agree. It just really did drag on. I mean, I like long arcs, but if you're going to do a long arc, first of all, this is the longest tournament arc ever, like in any Dragon Ball series. But if you're going to do a long arc, you have to keep it interesting. It can't just be like, you know, a one fight, another fight, another fight. You have to have some kind of story there. And like with the Cell Saga, you had developments. You had different androids. You had Cell doing absorption stuff. You had Vegeta, Trunks, the Room of Spirit and Time, Gohan. Yeah. You had little time breaks here and there. You know, things actually happen. Frieza Saga, you had his henchmen, Kui, Zarbon, Dodoria, then the Ginyu Force, then Frieza. Like, you had different things happen. Vegeta switching sides. Here, it was just like, fight, and no actual story and no real development. I mean, there was development, but there was no actual plot. There was no plot. So I do think that made it suffer. And hopefully if Super does come back, we'll get a series that has, or an arc at least, that has an actual plot to it that has a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, absolutely. They can only really look at these kind of mistakes or these things that we didn't really like during the series, reflect on them, and then improve whatever new series or whatever the future of Dragon Ball holds. And, you know, if this Dragon Ball really does improve upon these things, I can just imagine how great, you know, it really could end up becoming. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in the future of Dragon Ball.
Right.
All right, guys, so these have been the 10 things that we didn't like about the Universe Survival arc. Of course, check out the other video, the part 2 to this video, over on Geekdom 101's channel, in which we talked about the 10 things that we did like, and let us know your own 10 things down below in the comments section. And if you like this content, make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Wow, this sucks.
Biceps times 10!